Good evening and welcome. I'm Lisa Rayam, your moderator for the evening. I am host and senior producer of WABE's Morning Edition, and I am so honored to be here tonight for this forum. Tonight's forum is an opportunity for you, the candidates, to introduce yourselves to the voters of Sandy Springs and shed some light on your platform. Now, I need to note this isn't a debate where you openly challenge your opponent, but just a forum to let the voters know who you are and what you stand for. So welcome and glad that you're here. I'd like to take this opportunity first to introduce you to our two panelists who will be asking the tough questions this evening. First, we have Amy Wenk, editor for Reporter Newspaper, and Tammy Joyner, democracy reporter for the Atlanta Civic Circle. It's great to have both of you here tonight. Before we begin the forum, we'd like you, the candidates, the mayoral candidates, to introduce yourselves. You will have 1 minute, and please note you are being timed. As you can see, there's a little timer on the screen there that will be counting down the seconds. Dontaye Carter, we begin with you. Please tell us who you are. Mr. Carter, you are on mute.
Now I see everybody gets caught up. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dontaye Carter, and thank you so much for this opportunity to speak with you tonight. Every significant moment in my life has happened here in the city of Sandy Springs. After I married my dream girl, we purchased our dream home right here in Sandy Springs. And a few years later, I held my little girl in my arms for the first time at Northside Hospital. And I even built a business here in the city of Sandy Springs that's been internationally recognized for our work in the legal space. But I couldn't have done it without the ability to identify the experts who could help me to make that vision a reality. I'm running here for mayor because our city has failed us. They failed to be transparent, they failed to be accountable, and they failed to make do on their promises. And I refuse to leave my daughter's life or the lives of your children in the hands of a lobbyist who has a record of putting the needs of his clients before the needs of our citizens. And I know when many of you voted for this city of Sandy Springs, this isn't what you expected, but I want you to know I still believe in this city. I believe what we're able to do, and I believe that we can move this city forward in a way where we're bringing people along together.
Dontaye Carter, thank you. Rusty Paul, tell us who you are.
Well, I'm the current mayor. And my wife, Jan, and I have raised our 5 kids in this community. And the greatest honor I've had in my life is to serve as the mayor of this city. And the focus that I have maintained and will continue to maintain is, one, keep this community safe and make sure we have the best trained, best equipped, best qualified police officers, firefighters in the whole country. Secondly, we need to protect our neighborhoods. We made an agreement with our neighborhoods in the Next 10 process that we would not break up our neighborhoods. They are the backbone and strength of this community, and they deserve to be protected. Most people put their life savings in their homes, and they should expect that the city is not going to change the character of their neighborhoods through rezoning. And the final thing is we've got to keep the taxes low. We made a commitment when we started the city that we would operate with tax caps on the millage rate, tax on the valuations. And I'm a firm supporter of that. We can operate this city on the revenues that we've received, and we'll continue to do that.
Mr. Paul, Mr. Carter, thank you both. Now the forum will begin. You will be asked a total of 4 questions by our panelists, and then I will ask one based on questions the public submitted in advance. Each of you will have 1 minute to answer each question. Amy will begin this round. Amy?
Thank you, and thank you both for being here tonight. So I would like to ask you both, how will you work to build a more inclusive and diverse community? Mayor Paul, can we start with you?
Well, I've already started doing that. Last summer, during the challenges that we had, I launched a series of civic dinners, and we had over 300 people come and participate, and it was real clear that we had people who didn't feel included, they didn't feel involved. As one person said, you know, what's the difference between diversity and inclusion? Diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion's being asked to dance. So getting that kind of feedback, we started the Diversity Inclusion Task Force, which is working right now, and hopefully soon will bring us recommendations about how we get more people dancing in this community. It is a diverse community. It's a community that we are proud to be diverse. And what we want to do is make sure that everybody feels a part of the community, feels involved in the community, feels engaged in the community, and feels an integral part of this community that we call Sandy Springs.
Thank you. And Mr. Carter, how will you work to build a more inclusive and diverse community?
Amy, thank you so much for the question. You know, there was a lot that was said last year, but the reality is the actions have failed to match the words. We got some real work to do. Our diversity and inclusion task force that we've talked so much about, they've already submitted their recommendations. When are we going to act on them? We've got some work to do. We got to start hosting some real town hall meetings because we've got to expand the group of people that we're talking to. This city is multicultural. It's multicultural, and we've got to ensure that we've got a seat around the table for each and every one. Thank you.
Tammy, Joyner, we'll continue the questioning.
Thank you. And good evening to both of your candidates. This question, I'll start out with Mr. Carter first. What's your strategy for increasing the supply of affordable housing in Sandy Springs?
You know, my biggest thing is we got to start communicating with folks. We got to bring people to the table. We don't have a plan in place right now. We've had studies done, and they've had some great ideas in those studies, but we don't have a plan. We got to get a plan done, and we got to do it with the voices of the community, because we know this is a diverse, multicultural community. We've got to bring people to the front that understand those needs, that understand that there are changes that need to be made. Sandy Springs is going to continue to change. It's going to continue to be diverse. But if those voices are falling on deaf ears, we're going to continue to set ourselves back. And it's time for us to take that step into the future.
Thank you. Mayor, I'd like to ask you the same question. What's your strategy for increasing the supply of affordable housing in Sandy Springs?
Well, first of all, I need to correct something Mr. Carter said. The Diversity and Task Force Inclusion Committee our task force has not submitted its report yet. I've asked them to submit a complete and total report when they finish their work. And so when they finish the work, we'll get it. How do we increase the quality of housing? First of all, we don't want to grow the population of Sandy Springs. This is not about putting more people on our roads and streets and in our communities, but there's some things that we can do. First of all, we've got to preserve and modernize some of our older houses and some of our existing neighborhoods that would be perfect for starter homes for young families, that for our nurses and firefighters and police officers and other middle-class housing. The biggest gap we have is for middle-class home ownership. And we really have to focus on how we increase the amount of housing stock that's available for that group. We'll be bringing to council early October, a plan to use some city surplus property for cottage court housing. That's something that we put in our next 10 a few years ago. We've got a plan to do that. I've worked with several nonprofits, and we're bringing that forward. So those are some of the things I would do.
Thank you.
Amy, your next question.
So it seems like everywhere you go today, employers are desperate for workers. What can the city government do to help? And we'll start with you, Mr. Carter.
Yeah, I think that's the elephant in the room, right? It's addressing the housing needs. Gosh, I run a business. My wife runs a business. We're all feeling the impact of people who come and work for us, traveling from all across the metro area. And I think what we've got to do also is ensure that folks understand that this epidemic that we're in, it falls on all of us. You know, our housing taxes rose 4%. And I think if we're talking about ensuring that there's that balance, right, we should have lowered the millage rate so that our homeowners don't carry the burden of that tax. And so we've got some work to do here. We've got a lot of work to do. And we got to get out. We got to talk to business owners. We got to find out what their issues are, what their employees need, what they want to see, because that's the best way that our city can work. We got to improve communication. We failed to communicate with our citizens, with business owners, and we got to ensure that we start to build those bridges so that we can take a step into the future.
Thank you. And Mayor, how can the city government help with the current worker shortage?
Well, I have been meeting with our business community. I sat down with the restaurateurs a couple of weeks ago, part of a panel discussing their challenges and needs. And we've already started doing some things. One, training and education of our workforce is crucial. We have a relationship. We are the official urban laboratory for Kennesaw State University. We sat down with them a couple of years ago to start how we train our workers for the modern technologies that these employers in Sandy Springs want. So we have a relationship. In fact, the first project's kicking off. They're looking at the area around Roswell Road and 285, some of the apartment complexes in there. How can we begin to do a better job of planning and integrating those folks into the economy of one of the biggest employment centers in the Southeast? We've already started that, working with Kennesaw State. We've got a great working relationship. They're bringing their students here. When their professors get research opportunities, they do that in Sandy Springs. It's a unique relationship that no other city in America has done that we've done.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. Tammy, you have the last round of questions.
Thank you. This is for Mr. Carter. How will your administration address the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic as it relates to Sandy Spring? What are some things that you feel need to be put in place to address this ongoing pandemic?
Well, honestly, I think right now what we need bold and we need courageous leadership. I've spoken to many doctors. I'm well aware of the issues that are going on at Scottish Rite, at Northside, at St. Joe's. And the reality is we've got to go ahead and mandate this vaccine. We've got to ensure that we are putting people's lives above liberty. The reality is, and I'm saying that because without life, there is no liberty. And we have to put lives first. Okay, I've got a 3-year-old. I can't afford a 3-year-old who can't get vaccinated. I can't afford for something to happen to her. I can't afford for something to happen to her classmates. We need people of action. We need people who are bold enough to even be hated at times because they are fighting for the entire community. And that's what I'm going to do when it comes to COVID-19.
Thank you. Mayor Paul, same question. How will your administration address the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic? And what are some steps that you feel need to be taken to specifically address the needs of Sandy Springs when it comes to this pandemic?
Well, step one is getting more people vaccinated. There's no question that in our community and communities across Georgia and across the whole country, we've got a lot of people who still aren't vaccinated. I've been out with our fire department, going into apartment complexes, meeting with the residents there, urging them to get vaccinated, working with our first responders who've done a phenomenal job. Our fire department has done an amazing job of getting out in the community, working with people, and we're making some progress. We've increased the number of our city employees who've gotten vaccinated in the last few months. We're going out into the community, to the apartment complexes, to underserved communities, to make sure that they are being vaccinated. Our firefighters go out, they cook hot dogs, they cook hamburgers, they do education and vaccinate, and they are working to get this group out there. And I'm with them hand in hand, going out into these communities to try and persuade our folks to go ahead and get the vaccine. That's the most important thing that they can do.
Mayor Paul, Mr. Carter, thank you so much. Now, this last question is submitted by the public, and they want to know, public safety is a top concern for residents. What does the city need to do to recruit the best and brightest in law enforcement? Mr. Carter.
I think one of the things that we've honestly got to do, and, I will give our city council some credit. It took 11 candidates to run to get it done, but they finally rose the pay of our police officers. Police officers have to be valued. That's just the reality of it. They have to feel valued. And if they don't feel valued, if they don't feel supported, they're going to run. And one of the things I've done, in my experience working at the Fulton County DA's office, I want to say this. I took an oath to serve and protect the citizens of Fulton County. And I've never given up on that oath. In fact, I've spent time speaking with law enforcement consultants about what to do to improve the relationship. And they told me, they said, you know what? They said, contrary to popular belief, in a city like yours, there are officers that actually want to live there, but they can't afford to live there. So what are you going to do to ensure that those officers can call this place home? And that's what I think is important. It's ensuring that whatever we can do to ensure that they are valued, whether it's housing, whether it's increasing pay, we make those things happen so that they are valued.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Mayor Paul, ask you the same question. Public safety is a top concern. What does the city need to do to recruit the best and brightest in law enforcement?
Well, number one, crime has decreased every year under my watch until last year when things kind of plateaued, but we still got it going in the right direction. Secondly, you hire the best. And we're recruiting all over the country. We're going to Portland, Seattle, Boston. We're hiring people there where the police officers are not trained, are not treated as well as ours are. Then we make sure they're the best equipped. We get the FBI and other law enforcement agencies coming to Sandy Springs to borrow our stuff. And then we make sure we have the best facilities. We're building a brand new public facility for the police and fire and our first responders. And secondly, you keep them independent. One of the things Mr. Carter has said, he's thrilled that he's been supported by the labor unions. And there's real concern in this community that he's going to come in and unionize the police and the fire and the city employees. And I guarantee you, I am 100% against that effort and would stand against it in all cases. But we have the best people, got the best training, and our community loves our police and fire and first responders.
Can I clarify for a second? There was something that was brought up about an endorsement that I received, and I think it needs.
Well, I have to stop you. This is not a debate and we cannot go back and forth, but thank you so much for being here. You know, the time flies, doesn't it? This forum is over and you guys, you've done a tremendous job. So give yourselves a pat on the back. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your views. Rusty Paul, Dontaye Carter are your candidates for Sandy Springs Mayor. Again, thank you for taking the time. We would like to give you 30 seconds, each of you, to give us closing remarks for the evening. So Dontaye Carter will begin with you for closing remarks.
You know, I'll start by saying this. The reality is I've been endorsed by a lot of people, and I've been endorsed by a lot of people because they know that I'm going to fight for a lot of people. They know that I'm going to put the interests of the people at the forefront. That's what I'm going to do. For me, this isn't about spending more time down at the state capitol than I do in City Hall. This is about making a difference in this community. And you know what? It's important that I let you know, my greatest fear is leaving a world off for this little girl than what I inherited. And I'm prepared to fight for each and every resident here.
Dontaye Carter, thank you so much. Beautiful girl there. Rusty Paul, Mayor Paul, 30 seconds for closing remarks.
Thank you for holding this and for all those people who tuned in tonight. I hope you've learned a lot about your candidates. There's 4 things that we need to do. One, we've got to keep our city safe and make sure that we have the best first responders out there. I'm committed to doing that. Secondly, we've got to protect our neighborhoods. People invest their life savings in their community. We need to protect that. We need to continue to create a family-friendly environment, and we've done that. And we're putting families first, and then we make sure our taxes are low.
Thank you so much. Mayor Paul, Dontaye Carter, we didn't keep you up too late, did we? No, just a little bit. Well, thank you so much. We've had a great time hearing from all of the candidates this evening. Thank you so much for being here. And I want to thank our 2 panelists, Amy Wenk and Tammy Joyner. Thank you so much. Election Day is November 2nd, so get out and vote. That does it for us. Thank you so much for joining us for this forum sponsored by Atlantic Civic Circle. Thank you for being here.